Companions have been reworked with the Koumei update, and there are a lot of things to go over, and honestly it's a bit too much. So instead, I'm going to go on a quick yap session for the beginning of this video, summarizing everything that you need to know and all the important things. And then we will go into a top 10 companions guide, which you can skip to if you don't care. But I would suggest watching the top 10 because there are two very broken synergies that I have found that I think that you would be interested in to cause more mayhem in Warframe. Alright, yap time. This companion rework was focused on beasts, so Kubros, Predicites, and Kavats, and so on. Some of these sentinels did get tweaked, which are actually major changes, but for now we shall focus on the beasts. All of your beasts now have claws, which are effectively your beast's weapon. This will allow your companion to do more damage, as you can effectively mod for damage separately instead of only having the companion to mod both damage and utility. This allows you to have more flexibility. Pretty much all of the companion precepts were tweaked and reworked. Some shine more than others, but overall the main thing you need to know is beasts now do more damage, and you can get some really cool synergies with modding them the right way. We also have postures for beasts which change how they behave. To name a few, Assassin posture makes your beast focus on Xmas units. This one is particularly good because you can remove that overguard quite easily with the right modding. There is a balanced posture which they move as they see fit and stagger enemies in 2 meters, and a persistent posture which the companion will continuously attack one target. There are a bunch more, but you get the idea. Each posture changes how they behave, and you can actually build around them accordingly. It is really cool to see the synergy that you can make with them, and in this video I'm pretty much going to be showcasing one type of synergy which I personally enjoy. One other thing I want to talk about is the Charm rework. Charm now no longer has the resource and credit pickup bonus. It now has a 40% chance to proc these buffs here shown on the screen. The credit and resource boost now has been moved to Loyal Retriever, which gives us a 13% chance to double credit and resource pickups, which can now be put onto any beast. There is also Resourceful Retriever and Prosperous Retriever, which gives us 18% chance to double each type of resource respectively. These mods can only be placed onto beasts. Alright, that is all you need to know. Yap time over. Onwards to the list. First on the list we have the Panzer Vulperfiler. Honestly, this companion is the best all-rounder to have in Warframe. It has a unique mod called Viral Quills, which will prime enemies in an AoE with viral stacks, allowing you a bit more flexibility to mod for corrosive heat, for example, on your weapons. With the addition of claws on all of the beast companions, you can also mod for corrosive there, to apply 1 or 2 corrosive procs. Not only that, you can add Bellringer as well as Magnetic Strike to easily apply 10 magnetic procs, helping you when it comes to enemies with shields and overguard. The Panzer also has a mod called Panzer Devolution, which makes your Panzer hang above you when it dies and will continuously throw out viral quills. So it's like your own personal viral turret. It's really handy to have. This is what makes the Panzer so special, because even when it's dead, it's still helping you some way or another. Here is the main build that we've used for the Panzer, and you can run one of the Retriever mods if you want more loot. You can just use the primed mods if you have them. This is a fairly balanced setup. Tandem Bond is flexible, you can switch it out for Contagious Bond if you'd like. For the claws, we go for the Assassin posture. Personally, it's my favorite one, as let's face it, in normal missions for the most part, Xmas units are the biggest issue in general. And this is the build we go for, which is a corrosive setup, and we also apply Magnetic with Magnetic Strike and Bellringer. Honestly, you cannot go wrong with the Panzer, it's a really solid choice. Next up, we have the Sunika Kubro. Now previously this one was okay to say the least. However, the Sunika has a specific mod called Unleashed. This will force your Kubro to hunt for Xmas units protected by Overguard within 60 meters and deal 300% damage against Overguard. Now that's a lot of damage increase from just one mod. But remember, we have Assassin posture, which pretty much does the exact same thing. Yeah, so that's 600% increased damage against enemies with Overguard. It's broken and I've tested it, it literally one-shots their Overguard, it's very satisfying. It may not seem like much, but this makes Xmas units vulnerable to all of your crowd control debuffs from your frame. And you can run Duplex Bond to make multiple of them. So yeah, it's pretty handy to have. The Sunika is pretty much your personal Xmas hunter, it's incredibly satisfying and makes your life so much easier in normal missions. The Sunika, when built correctly, does a lot of damage as well. This is the Sunika build that I run. It's important to run Duplex Bond as well, and of course remember to swap out a mod for Retriever. Okay, I'm just going to say this quickly, that I'm not going to say this for every beast companion in this list. Just remember that you can add that if you want more loot in your missions. And for the claws, make sure to run Assassin posture, as it synergizes with Unleashed perfectly. For pretty much all of the claw builds shown, I will be running a magnetic build because it's perfect for Overguard. So this further increases our damage with this whole synergy, because your Kubro will be applying easy 10 procs of magnetic and allows you to one-tap Eximus units easily. If you hate Eximus units, then yeah, this Kubro is perfect for you. Up next, we have the Adarza Kavat. Now, the Adarza Kavat is a crit-focused companion because of Cat's Eyes. This mod will give you 60% crit chance for 10 seconds to you and your allies within 25 meters every 20 seconds. Honestly, this is all the companion is special for. It's not a bad option. It's pretty decent if you like more crit. I really don't have much more to say besides, yeah, this is just what it's good for. Cat's Eyes, basically. Here is the main Kavat build. Here is the Claws. I know you Harrow mains out there are going to love this Kavat. Up next, we have the Nautilus. Now, this is the first broken synergy in this video. This one was by chance on stream that I found this, and I did not expect it at all to be this good. So we know the Nautilus, one of the nicest companions to pull enemies in because of Cordon. This paired with Manifold Bond allows you to keep pulling groups of enemies in constantly. It's amazing if you don't want to subsume a pull ability onto your frame and use it from your companion instead. Now, with the recent rework, a lot of the Sentinel weapons were tweaked a bit. One of them which I found to be incredibly underrated is the Cryotra. This is a Sentinel weapon which will effectively lob ice grenades to nearby enemies that will inflict a lingering chill on the blast zone. When built correctly, this thing is disgusting. So this weapon applies cold, and if we pair this with Duplex Bond, it will allow you to have multiple clones applying cold. Even if the enemies are frozen, they will be pulled in with Cordon. We use the mod Shivering Contagion, which will spread the cold procs to nearby enemies even more, and we build for status duration, a lot of reload speed and fire rate, and we then have a companion that will allow us to freeze any nearby enemy and pull them in consistently, pretty much allowing you to relax and chill while they cannot do anything. Pair this with Nova and her rework. You can just use Neutron Star and sit there while eventually everything just dies. You can also run Frost with his augment Biting Frost. Now, there is one issue with this. Because of the chilling zone, it will drop your FPS drastically for some reason, so be wary of this if you have a potato PC. The Cryotra is pretty much my go-to Sentinel weapon for most of my companions. There is another option, which is the Hellstrom, which is perfect when paired with Synth Deconstruct and modding for gas. It's a huge AoE explosive that hits multiple enemies and will help you drastically when it comes to using equilibrium on your frames. This is just another option if you don't like the cold, but the cold is broken, so use that if you can. This is the Nautilus build that we use, and here is the Cryotra setup that we use. Remember to use Duplex Bond on your Nautilus build so that you can apply way more cold procs. Honestly, this is by far one of the best synergies that I've seen, and you won't regret trying it out. Before we move on to the Hound, could I ask that you smash that like button, as it really helps me out with the algorithm. Thank you so much. Up next on the list, we have the Hound, more specifically the Byra Hound. This Hound is a great primer in Warframe, honestly my go-to when it comes to priming from a companion. The Hound is really good because of Synergized Prospectus. It fires out a spark that seeks nearby enemies in a 30-meter radius, dealing electricity damage. The spark will also ricochet to nearby enemies as well. But what makes this so great is it will also apply all of the status effects from your companion's weapon. So you can mod accordingly to get an easy 5+ status effects, allowing your weapons with condition overload type mods to do way more damage. Also, the Hound has a mod called Repo Audit, which will emit a pulse that disarms enemies within 30 meters, so it's even more crowd control. Pairing this with Manifold Bond, you can make your Hound cast its abilities a lot more, and honestly, the Hound is just amazing as an all-rounder for your general missions. Here is the Hound build, and I use the Akaton as the weapon. We use this build to get about 5 status effects, and then we mod for corrosive, radiation, and cold. This is super handy for priming and honestly my go-to. A solid choice for a companion. Moving on to the Worm Prime. I pretty much use the Worm Prime for level caps, and the reason for this is because of the precept mod called Negate. Negate is actually really strong as it cleanses you of status effects, but after this rework, Manifold Bond now reduces the cooldown of Negate, which actually makes it a lot better. Yes, it cleanses only one status effect at a time, but it's more than enough and actually really helps you when you get that nasty slash or heat proc, and worst of all, the hated toxin proc. Worm is actually really nice if you're running adaptation on your Warframe and you don't have a means to status cleanse. Not only do you have status cleanse, but you can make use of coolant leak on your main build to also then spread more cold onto enemies and freeze them. And of course, you can run Cryotra as your weapon to freeze a bunch of enemies too. It's just a great utility companion helping you stay alive. Here is the main Worm build. Coolant leak can be flexible if you want to run a different bond mod, but it's up to you to what you want. And then of course the Cryotra build that I showed earlier, as this will pretty much be copy and paste with other Sentinels. Otherwise, you can run the Hellstrom build as well to help you proc synth deconstruct more often if you are an equilibrium runner. Moving on to the next broken synergy with the Doriga. Yes, this is the second one. Now for context, I have never really used the Doriga prior to this video. I was aware of it being an extremely good primer as a companion, but I never really paid attention to it until I gave it a try for this video. Well, where do we even start? The Doriga is a shocky companion that has a preset mod called Arc Coil, which zaps nearby enemies within 10 meters dealing electricity damage. But every time you zap enemies, it will also apply the status effects you modded for on your companion's weapon. We make use of the laser rifle weapon as this has IPS built into it, so it already has 3 status effects. We then mod for corrosive, radiation, and cold, but we mod for shivering contagion to spread our status effects even more. So this already gives us an easy 6 status effects to prime nearby enemies. But here is what's broken. If you add Momentous Bond onto your Doriga build, it will allow you to gain a random elemental damage to your companion's attacks. And if you kill a bunch of Xmas units, these effects will actually start stacking up on top of each other, allowing you to add a bunch of different status effects and pretty much priming them with like 8+ status effects. It's kind of like a pocket secondary encumber. The Doriga is broken when it comes to priming and is very nice if you are a condition overload player. Here is the Doriga build that I opted for, and here is the laser rifle build focusing on as many status effects as possible. If you are a fan of priming, then honestly the Doriga is perfect for you. Moving on to the Death Cube. Now the Death Cube is the perfect companion for energy sustain because of its mod called Energy Generator. After 10 assisting kills, Death Cube will drop an energy orb. This means that your companion just needs to damage the enemy and then you can kill the enemy to count as an assist. Because of this, I would highly suggest running the Hellstrom with Firestorm to increase its radius and mod for gas, allowing you to create a cloud to damage nearby enemies. Pair this with Synth Deconstruct and you are in energy heaven basically. You can also use the Cryocha if you'd like. Here is the Death Cube build we use, here is the Hellstrom and the Cryocha build. You can choose what you like. The main thing for this companion to know is that you have to make sure that your Death Cube actually hits the enemies so that you can kill them, allowing you to get an assisted kill, dropping more energy orbs. We then move on to the infamous Smeater Kavat. Now I've already gone over the charm rework earlier on in the video. Basically the resource multiplier has been removed from charm and promoted to its own separate preset mod, Loyal Retriever, which I've gone over earlier on in the video like I said. Charm's chance to proc has been increased to 40% and the available buffs are here on the screen. You can pause to read them if you like, and the good thing is the affinity bonus has been increased to 3 times. So this rework is technically a nerf to Smeater in the sense that you now need to waste 2 mod slots if you want the full effect of charm, but for the other beasts it's actually pretty good since you no longer need to just run Smeater for loot farming. And you can benefit from a more consistent increase in credits and loot. But Smeater is still good to run nonetheless, especially if you are XP farming. And also just general buffs as well. This is the Smeater build that I run, and you can also run a retriever mod if you really want to. And here is the claws, which is pretty much copy and paste for all the beasts in this video. And that concludes the Smeater. Not as good as before, but still capable and good to run in some cases. For the last companion on this list, we have the Roxa Kubro. Now this Kubro is a fairly simple companion and has one amazing purpose: protect. This little doggo with this mod is amazing for shield gating and shield tanking. Especially if you're running something like catalyzing shields, it's fairly consistent to run the Roxa Kubro with this mod. If you use this mod in the star chart, honestly you are chilling. Base deal path as well. If you're running high level content, it's not going to make much of a difference, but for general gameplay, it's perfect. The Roxa Kubro does have Howl, which is like Necros's Terrify, but honestly I don't like it because then the enemies just run away from you, which is just meh, it's just annoying. This is the Roxa build that I ran, and here is a copy and paste claw build. Overall, the Roxa is just good for survivability, especially in the early game. It's a solid choice for early game players. That pretty much concludes the top 10 list, but we do have a few honorable mentions which I would like to mention quickly, but I don't have proper builds for. The first honorable mention is the Mower, more specifically the Para Mower, making use of Whiplash Mine. You can also run the Cryocha with the Mower as well. Next up is Carrier for new players and making use of ammo case. If you ever feel like you're struggling with ammo, then Carrier is really handy to have in that regard. The Helios is also handy if you want to scan enemies, and the Oxalis is also good for plant scanning if you want to farm plants with the pricey Botanist mod. That finally concludes the video. Overall, the companion rework has been huge and has definitely allowed us to have more flexibility when it comes to using different companions. So it just comes down to what you need for your loadout. I would highly recommend running the Nautilus and the Doriga. Those two are absolutely insane, and I have just done a video on the new Incarnate weapons if you are interested in giving those a try. I would really recommend running the Cerberus Incarnate, it's broken with Blast. Otherwise, as always, a massive thank you to all of our amazing channel members, and a special thank you to Darwin, Fish, Joshua, Villa, Caden, Trum, Shakiro, Gilbert, Yard, and Tythrax. Thank you all so much for your ongoing support. All right, enjoy the new companions. Bye.